The chamber door slammed open behind me, and 12 voices screamed at once. I did not flinch. I walked forward across the polished black floor of the obsidian spire, my boots clicking softly with every step. Above me, rising in a massive curved wall, sat the High Council of the Galactic Conquered. 12 species, 12 thrones carved from crystal and bone and living metal, 12 sets of eyes all fixed on me. I was the only human in the room. I was also the only one who was smiling. The lead counselor, an ancient creature called High Arbiter Thassan, slammed his long gray hand against the stone of his dais. The sound echoed through the chamber like a hammer. "Commander Elias Vance," he said, his voice shaking with something that was almost rage and almost fear. "You will answer for this. You will answer now." I stopped walking. I looked up at him. I kept smiling. "I am here, High Arbiter," I said. "Ask your questions." Around me, the air itself felt heavy. The obsidian spire was a neutral station, built centuries ago to orbit a dead star at the edge of conquered space. It was supposed to be a place of peace, a place where old enemies could sit across from each other and talk instead of fight. Today, it did not feel peaceful. Today, it felt like a storm about to break. Thassan leaned forward, his long face, pale as old paper, twisted with anger. "The Vrix," he said. "The Vrix Dominion has attacked your people. They struck your colony on the frontier, Kepler's Reach. 80,000 of your citizens, gone, wiped from existence in a single night." I did not answer. I already knew. I had known for 6 weeks. The counselor to Thassan's left, a tall, blue-skinned female named Arbiter Keva, spoke next. Her voice was softer, but her eyes were hard as stone. "For 300 years," she said, "the Vrix have terrorized the rim of our galaxy. They have struck 17 peaceful worlds. They have killed billions. And for 300 years, the Conquered has done nothing, because the Vrix homeworld sits inside a gravity storm that no fleet can survive." I nodded slowly. "I am aware." "But now," she said, "they have struck your people. And the humans, as we have learned over the past 40 years, are not like the rest of us. The humans do not forget. The humans do not forgive. The humans do not hesitate." Thassan stood up from his throne. His long robes fell around him like falling water. He raised one trembling hand and pointed at me. "Wipe them out," he said. His voice was no longer soft. It was a command. "Wipe out the Vrix, end this threat forever. You are the only species in this galaxy crude enough, fierce enough, stubborn enough to do it. The Conquered gives you its full authority. We will send fleets. We will send weapons. We will send every resource we have. End them." The chamber went silent. 12 sets of eyes watched me. 12 voices waited for my answer. They expected me to rage. They expected me to weep. They expected me to demand blood and fire and revenge. I did none of those things. I looked up at Thassan. I looked at Keva. I looked at every single counselor in that chamber, one by one, taking my time. I kept my voice calm. I kept my face quiet. And then I said the words that would be remembered in that chamber for the next 1,000 years. "You are already gone." Thassan blinked, his mouth opened slightly. "What?" "Not you," I said gently. "The Vrix, they are already gone, they just have not noticed yet." For a long moment, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. 12 species, all older and wiser and more powerful than mine, sat frozen on their thrones, trying to understand what I had just said. Finally, Keva spoke very softly. "Commander, what do you mean?" I turned toward the chamber door. I began walking away. "I mean exactly what I said, Arbiter. You asked humanity to wipe out the Vrix. You are 6 weeks too late. The work is already done." The chamber erupted behind me, voices shouting, counselors demanding answers, guards moving forward, uncertain whether to stop me or bow to me. I did not look back. I walked out through the massive doors and they slid shut behind me, cutting off the noise. In the quiet corridor outside, my aide was waiting. Her name was Lieutenant Marakel. She was young, barely 24, and she had been assigned to me only 6 months ago. She was sharp, quick, and honest. I liked her. She stood against the wall with her arms crossed, her dark hair tied back, her uniform perfectly pressed. When she saw my face, her eyes narrowed. "Sir," she said, "you look like someone who just dropped a bomb and walked away whistling." Something like that. She fell into step beside me as I headed toward the docking bay. The corridor was long and curved, made of dark stone that seemed to swallow the light from the ceiling panels. Our footsteps were the only sound. "What happened in there?" she asked. "They demanded that we destroy the Vrix. And I told them we already had." She stopped walking. I took 2 more steps before I realized she was not beside me anymore. I turned. She was staring at me, her mouth slightly open, her face pale. "Sir," she said slowly, "I have read every briefing you have ever sent. I have sat in every meeting. I know every human military operation currently active in this galaxy, and I can tell you right now, no such operation exists." "I know," I said. "That is because you were not told." Her jaw tightened. "Why not?" "Because only 7 people on Earth knew, and now you are the 8th. I started walking again. After a long moment, she followed. When she spoke again, her voice was careful. "Explain." I raised my wrist. On the small screen of my communicator, a timer was counting down. The numbers moved slowly but steadily. 6 hours, 5 hours and 59 minutes, 58. "In 6 hours," I said, "every Vrix in this galaxy will wake up alone. They will not know each other. They will not remember who they are. They will not remember what they were building, what they were planning, or why they struck Kepler's reach. The Vrix Dominion, as a civilization, will simply cease to exist." Mara walked beside me in silence for nearly a full minute. "How?" she finally asked. "I cannot tell you here, not on this station, not in this corridor, but when we are safe aboard our ship I will tell you everything, I promise." We reached the docking bay. Our shuttle was waiting, a small silver craft shaped like a blade. 2 Marines in dark gray uniforms saluted as we approached. I returned the salute. Mara climbed into the shuttle first. I followed. As the door closed behind us, I looked back one last time at the obsidian spire. The ancient station loomed in the darkness, its black surface reflecting the red light of the dead star. Inside, 12 counselors were still shouting at each other, still trying to understand what had just happened. They did not know yet, but they would. The shuttle lifted off. I sat down in the co-pilot seat. Mara sat across from me, her eyes still full of questions. "Sir," she said, "one more thing before you tell me the whole story, just one question." "Go ahead." "If the Vrix are already finished, why did you smile when Thassan demanded we end them?" I looked out the window. The dead star hung in the darkness like a black eye watching the galaxy. Below us, the spire grew smaller and smaller. I thought about 80,000 people on Kepler's reach. I thought about the ones who had died, and the ones who had lived, and the ones who had planned for 40 years to make sure this day would come. "Because, Mara," I said softly, "for 40 years I have been waiting to say those words, and I wanted to mean them." The shuttle turned toward deep space. The stars swept past the windows in a long silver blur. And somewhere far across the galaxy, inside a fortress that no fleet could ever reach, the Vrix Dominion was dying. They did not know it yet. They would not know it for 6 more hours. But the counting had already begun. Mara did not speak for the first 10 minutes of the flight. She sat across from me in the small cabin of the shuttle, her hands folded in her lap, her eyes fixed on the wall behind my head. I let her have the silence. She needed it. I had just told her that an entire civilization was ending, and she was trying to fit that fact into a mind that had been trained to believe such things were impossible. When she finally spoke, her voice was steady. That was one of the things I liked about her. She did not panic, she processed. "Start at the beginning," she said. I leaned back in my seat. Outside the window, the dead star was a small red point behind us, shrinking with every second. Ahead of us, the long curve of deep space stretched out toward the meeting point where our flagship, the Perseverance, was waiting. 40 years ago," I said. Humanity made first contact with the galactic Concord. Do you remember what they called us back then? The rough species, Mara said. The young ones, the crude apes. Yes, they thought we were dangerous because we were angry, because we had fought wars among ourselves for thousands of years, because when we met something new, our first question was often, can we fight it, and our second was, can we eat it? She almost smiled. That is not entirely fair. It is not entirely wrong either, but here is the thing they never understood about us. We did not fight because we were strong. We fought because we were weak. For most of our history, humans were small animals on a dangerous planet. We were not the fastest. We were not the biggest. We did not have claws or poison or armor. Every other animal on Earth could kill us easily, and most of them wanted to. Mara listened. The shuttle hummed quietly around us. So we did the only thing we could do. We got smart, and we got patient. A lion chases an animal for 10 minutes and gives up. A human chases it for 10 hours or 10 days or 10 years. We do not stop. We do not forget. And when we finally catch up to the thing we are hunting, we bring tools the animal never imagined. That is how we climb the food chain, not with strength, with patience and tools and the ability to plan for a future the prey cannot see. She nodded slowly, and the Vrix did not understand this. No, none of them did. The Conquered looked at us and saw warriors, brutes, simple, angry apes who would one day burn ourselves out in our own fires. They never imagined what we would do with 40 years and a grudge. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a small data chip. I placed it on the table between us. Everything I am about to tell you, I said, is on this chip. After you hear it, you will have to decide what to do with it. You can keep it. You can destroy it. You can send it back to Earth. That is your choice, but you need to know first. She picked up the chip and turned it over in her fingers. It was no bigger than a fingernail. She set it down again. I am listening, sir. I took a breath. 40 years ago, a human scientist named Dr. Renata Ackafer presented a paper to a small group of military planners. The paper was classified within hours. She had been studying the biology of the Vrix. She was one of only 3 humans in history who had been allowed access to Vrix tissue samples, and she noticed something that nobody else had. What? The Vrix are not individuals. They look like individuals. They walk, they talk, they make decisions. But inside every single Vrix is a biological network, a kind of living fungus that connects them to every other Vrix in the galaxy. They share thoughts. They share memories. They share plans. When one Vrix learns something, every Vrix learns it within minutes. They are, in a very real sense, one giant mind wearing trillions of bodies. Mara frowned. I have read this. The Conquered knows this too. Yes, but the Conquered thought it made the Vrix unstoppable. You cannot kill a species whose mind lives in every member at once. Cut one down, the rest carry on. Destroy a world, the hive survives on other worlds. You cannot defeat them because they are not really a them. They are in it. And Dr. Ackafer saw the same fact and reached the opposite conclusion. She said, if the Vrix are one mind, then that mind is a single target. You do not need to destroy their worlds or their fleets. You need to destroy the one thing that holds them together, the idea that they are one. Mara was very still now. She was beginning to understand. She proposed building something, I continued. Not a bomb, not a poison, something much stranger. She called it a language weapon, a message written in molecular structure that could enter the hive mind and rewrite a single core assumption, a single belief. What belief? The belief that they are not alone, the belief that other Vrix exist, the belief that the hive is real. Mara stared at me. You are telling me, she said slowly, that humanity spent 40 years building a weapon that convinces every Vrix in the galaxy that they are the only Vrix left. Yes. She leaned back in her seat. She ran a hand through her hair. For a long moment she did not speak. That is not a weapon, she said at last. That is a ghost. It is both. Think about what it means. A Vrix is not a creature that can survive alone. They have no memory of being alone. Their whole way of thinking is built on the hive. When they believe the hive is gone, they do not simply become lonely. They become broken. They forget how to speak. They forget their purpose. They forget who they are. Their civilization does not fall in fire. It simply unravels like a knot pulled loose from the wrong end. And this weapon, Mara said carefully, has been delivered. Yes, 6 weeks ago. How? Nothing we have can reach their homeworld. Their gravity storm tears apart every ship. We did not send a ship, I said. We sent a person. The shuttle chimed softly. We were approaching the Perseverance. Through the front window, I could see the great shape of our flagship growing in the distance, a long, dark sword of metal and light floating against the stars. Dozens of smaller ships patrolled around it in slow circles. One person, Mara said. One person carried this weapon past every defense the Vrix have built. Her name was Specialist Juno Hale. Mara looked up sharply at the tents. She knew she would not come back. She volunteered anyway. I want to tell you her story properly when we are aboard the ship. She deserves that much. But I will tell you the short version now so you understand. I paused. Outside, the Perseverance was filling the window now. Its hangar bay doors were opening for us, a long rectangle of warm light in the darkness. Juno was dying, I said quietly. She had an illness that no medicine could cure. She had 6 months left and she knew it. She could have spent those months with her family. She chose to spend them doing something else. What did she do? She let the scientists modify her body. They wove the language weapon into her cells, into her bones, into her blood. She became a walking carrier. Then we sent her to a black market zone where the Vrix were known to collect living specimens for study. She allowed herself to be captured. Mara closed her eyes for a moment. They took her to their homeworld. Yes, deep into the central hive spire. They studied her, they examined her, and in doing so they took the weapon into themselves. By the time they realized what was happening, it was already inside the hive mind, spreading, one mind at a time, quietly, invisibly. How long has it been spreading? 37 days. That is how long the process takes. In 6 hours it finishes. Every Vrix in the galaxy will experience at the same moment the total loss of the hive. They will wake up strangers to each other, strangers to themselves. The shuttle slid into the hangar bay of the Perseverance. The great doors closed behind us. Lights flickered on, and the sound of the outside galaxy was replaced with the quiet hum of the ship. Mara had not moved. She was still holding the data chip I had given her. "Sir," she said finally, "I have a question not about the mission, about you." "Go ahead." "You have known about this for 40 years. You have carried this secret for most of your career. And you have smiled at counselors and attended parties and shaken hands with ambassadors from 100 worlds, all while knowing that this plan was moving forward beneath the surface." "Yes." "How did you live with it?" I thought about that for a long moment. The shuttle doors were beginning to open. The hangar crew was approaching with equipment and welcomes. "I did not live with it easily," I said. "There were nights I did not sleep. There were days I looked at the Vrix ambassador at some dinner party, and I thought about how he would never know that his species had already been given a death sentence. That was a hard weight to carry, but I carried it because the alternative was worse." "What alternative?" "Doing what the Conquered wanted us to do, sending fleets, burning worlds. A war with the Vrix would have killed billions of our people and billions of theirs and left scars in this galaxy that would last for 10,000 years. Our way is quieter. Our way hurts fewer people. Our way, when it finishes, leaves the Vrix worlds empty but not burning. Their children, if they have any, will not grow up remembering who killed their parents. They will simply grow up in silence." Mara nodded slowly. She did not look happy, but she did not look angry either. She looked like someone who had been handed a very heavy stone and was deciding where to carry it. "And the other species," she asked, "the Conquered, what will they do when they find out?" I stood up. The shuttle door was fully open now. Outside, the bright lights of the Perseverance were waiting. "They will be afraid," I said, "very afraid, and that too is part of the plan." I stepped out of the shuttle. Her name was Juno Hale. I want you to remember that. Not the commander who gave the orders, not the scientists who built the weapon, not the politicians who approved the plan. When history tells the story of what humanity did to the Vrix, it will mostly talk about generals and councils and strategies. But the person who actually ended the Dominion was a 31-year-old woman from a small town in the north of England, who had never fired a weapon in her life. I met her once, just once. I want to tell you about that meeting before I tell you what she did. It was 8 months ago. I had flown to a quiet research facility in the desert, far from any city. The facility did not appear on any map. Its workers did not use their real names. The building itself looked like an old weather station, a few low concrete structures and a radio tower. Underground, it was something else entirely. It was where we had been building the language weapon for 39 years. I walked through a long hallway lit by pale blue lights. A doctor named Owen Kettering led me. He was a small, nervous man with gray hair and kind eyes. He had been part of the project for most of his life. "She is ready to meet you," he said. "But Commander, I have to warn you, she is not what you might expect." "What should I expect?" He paused outside a door. He looked at me for a long moment. "Most people, when they learn they are going to die, they become smaller, quieter. Juno became the opposite. I have worked with volunteers before for other hard missions. None of them were like her. Just be ready." He opened the door. The room was simple: a bed, a chair, a small table with a pot of tea and 2 cups, a window that looked out over the desert where the evening sun was turning the sand orange and gold, and a woman sitting in the chair reading a book. She looked up when I entered. She was small, maybe 150 centimeters tall, with short brown hair and a serious face. She wore a simple gray uniform. Her eyes were the clearest I had ever seen. They looked at me the way a hawk looks at a distant field, taking everything in at once. "Commander Vance," she said. Her voice was quiet, almost soft, but there was iron underneath it. "Please sit down. The tea is still warm." I sat. She poured 2 cups. Her hands were steady. Dr. Kettering closed the door behind him and left us alone. "I wanted to meet you," I said. "Before you go, I wanted to thank you." "I have not done anything yet, sir." "You have done the hardest part. You have said yes." She thought about that. She took a sip of her tea. Outside, a hawk circled over the desert, dark against the orange sky. "Can I ask you something, Commander?" she said. "Anything." "Do you believe this plan will work?" "I believe it will work, yes." "No," she set her cup down carefully. "I did not ask if you believe it will work. I asked if you believe it is right." I looked at her. I wanted to give her a good answer. She deserved one. "Juno," I said, "I have thought about that question for 30 years. I have turned it over in my head until I know every shape of it, and I will tell you the truth. I do not know if it is right. I know that it is less wrong than war. I know that fewer people will suffer this way than any other way. I know that if we do nothing, the Vrix will continue to attack peaceful worlds for centuries, and we will have to watch it happen, knowing we could have stopped it. That is what I know. Whether that makes our plan right, I cannot say. Perhaps no one can." She nodded slowly. She picked up her cup again. "I asked," she said, "because I wanted to know if you would lie to me. If you had said yes, the plan is absolutely right, I would have stopped trusting you. Because anyone who is sure about a thing like this is a fool or worse." And my answer? "Your answer was honest, so I will do it." The sun moved lower. The hawk disappeared. We talked for 2 more hours. She told me about her family. Her mother, who ran a small bakery in a town called Durham. Her younger brother, who was training to be a teacher. Her father, who had passed away 4 years earlier and whose old watch she wore on her wrist. She told me she had been sick for 3 years. Doctors had tried 6 different treatments. Nothing had worked. 6 months ago, they had told her the truth. She had less than a year to live, probably less than 8 months. "I could have gone home," she said. "I could have eaten my mother's bread every day. I could have watched the seasons change from the window of my bedroom, and part of me wanted to, a very big part. But you are here." "Yes." Why? She looked out the window. The sky was deep purple now, the first stars appearing. Because sometimes, Commander, you get lucky. You get a chance to turn a bad ending into a useful one. Most people never get that chance. I have it, and I would be ashamed to throw it away. My brother will teach children. My mother will bake bread. And I will do this thing so that their world is quieter tomorrow than it was today. That is a good trade, I think. Before I left, she gave me a letter. It was sealed in a plain white envelope. On the front, in her careful handwriting, were the words, "For my mother, to be given after." "Promise me," she said, "that you will deliver this, not through a messenger, yourself in person." "I promise." I have carried that letter in my jacket pocket for 8 months. I still have not delivered it, but I will. That was the last time I saw Juno Hale. 6 weeks later, she boarded a black market transport ship at the edge of Vrix-controlled space. She traveled under a false identity, posing as a living specimen being sold by a criminal trader. The trader was one of ours. He had spent 4 years building a reputation with the Vrix buyers. They trusted him. When he offered them a rare human female in good health, they paid him a high price and took her without question. Juno was moved in a sealed container for 9 days. She was brought through 3 different checkpoints. Eventually, she reached the Vrix homeworld, Xantheth. She was carried down to the great central hive spire, a tower of living rock that rose 5 kilometers above the surface and descended 10 kilometers below it. It was the heart of the Vrix civilization. Every important decision in the Dominion had been made inside that tower for the last 2,000 years. I was not there. I did not see what happened, but we had a way of watching. Over the years, our scientists had developed a very small device, no bigger than a grain of sand. It was a passive recorder. It could not transmit. It could not move. It simply absorbed sound and light for up to 40 days, and then when activated, it sent a single burst of recorded data back to a receiver. We had placed dozens of these devices on Juno's body, hidden in the lining of her clothes, in her hair, in the false teeth we had given her. Most would be destroyed. But a few, we hoped, would survive long enough to record the final moments. 3 of them did. I have listened to those recordings only once. I will not listen again. I will tell you what they contain because you need to know. But I will tell you briefly, and with respect, because Juno Hale deserves that. She was taken to a study chamber. The Vrix researchers were fascinated by her. Human biology was rare in their territory and valuable. They spoke to her in their clicking, humming language, and they were surprised when she answered them in the same language. She had been learning it for 2 years. Her accent was perfect. She told them she was not afraid. She told them she was a willing subject. She asked them to be gentle because she wanted to see their world before the study began. They agreed. They were polite. The Vrix, whatever else they were, had always been polite to their captives. For 3 days, they showed her the hive spire. She walked through the great chambers where the hive mind communicated with itself. She visited the gardens, where their fungal networks grew in warm, humid rooms. She met the elders. She touched the walls of the spire, which were alive, pulsing softly with the thoughts of trillions of Vrix across the galaxy. Every time she breathed, every time she touched a surface, every time she shed a single hair or drop of sweat, the language weapon moved from her into the environment, and from the environment into the fungal network, and from the network into the hive mind itself. On the 4th day the study began. It was thorough, it was careful. The Vrix were excellent scientists. They did not rush. They took samples and they examined them, and they shared what they learned with every other Vrix in the galaxy. By the end of the 7th day, the weapon was fully inside the hive mind. It had been accepted, shared, distributed. The Vrix did not know this. Nothing felt different to them. The weapon was designed to be invisible, to lie quietly inside the network, to slowly rewrite the foundation of Vrix identity over the course of 37 days. Juno died on the 7th day. Her last recording is short. She was alone in a small cell between studies. She knew it was nearly over. Her voice on the recording is calm. "Tell my mother," she said, "that I was not afraid. Tell her the bread always tasted like home. Tell my brother to be a good teacher. Tell the people of Kepler's Reach that I remembered them at the end. Tell the Vricks when they are gone that I was sorry. I truly was. Then the recording ends. I sat with Mara in my quarters aboard the Perseverance as I finished telling her this. The room was quiet. The lights were low. Outside the window, the stars moved slowly as the ship turned. Mara did not cry. She was not that kind of officer, but her eyes were wet and she did not try to hide it. "Sir," she said after a long moment, "you have been carrying this for 8 months. The letter, the memory, all of it." "Yes." "Who else knows her name?" 7 people, now 8. "She should be remembered." "She will be. When this is finished and the truth comes out, her name will be carved on a stone on earth. Her mother will read that letter. Her brother will teach his students about her. The galaxy will know what one woman did." Mara looked down at her hands. She was quiet for a while. "How long now?" she asked. I looked at my wrist. The timer had been ticking down the whole time we had talked. 2 hours and 11 minutes, I said. "Until the hive mind fractures. Until the Vrix dominion simply stops." She nodded. She stood up. She walked to the window and looked out at the stars. "Sir," she said, "I think I should go to the bridge. I want to be there when it happens." "Yes," I said, "so do I." The bridge of the Perseverance was quiet when we arrived. Not silent, because a warship is never silent. Consoles hummed. Communication stations chirped. Officers spoke to each other in low, focused voices. But the usual noise of a busy bridge was muted, careful, held back. Word had traveled through the ship in the last hour. The senior officers knew something large was about to happen. They did not know what. Captain Helena Brandt stood in the center of the bridge, her hands folded behind her back. She was a tall, lean woman in her 50s, with short silver hair and a face carved from long years of hard decisions. She saw me enter and nodded once. "Commander," she said, "systems are ready. All stations are monitoring Vrix communication channels. If anything changes, we will know within seconds." "Thank you, Captain." I took my place at the observation console near the front of the bridge. Mara stood just behind me. I glanced at the main screen. It showed a map of the galactic rim, with small red dots marking every known Vrix territory, every fleet, every major world. There were hundreds of dots. They stretched across an area of space so large that it took light years to cross. In less than 1 hour, every single one of those dots would go quiet. "Commander," Captain Brandt said, stepping up beside me, "permission to speak freely." "Always." "I have been briefed on what is happening. My senior officers have not. Do you want me to tell them now or after?" I thought about it. Now they deserve to know before it begins, not after. She nodded. She turned to her bridge crew. She spoke clearly, calmly, without wasting words. "Listen carefully. In approximately 48 minutes, the Vrix Dominion will experience what we can best describe as a complete collapse of their shared mind. This is the result of an operation that our government has been running for the past 40 years. It is not a weapon of fire or metal. It is, for lack of a better word, a change in their thinking. When it finishes, the Vrix will no longer function as a unified species. Their fleets will stop coordinating. Their worlds will go silent. Their civilization will unravel. This will happen without any direct action from our ships. We are here only to observe, to record, and to respond if anything unexpected occurs." The bridge crew listened. A few of them exchanged glances. One young officer, a communications specialist named Sergeant Paul Whitmore, raised his hand hesitantly. "Captain, with respect, is this an attack?" Brandt looked at me. I stepped forward. "Yes, Sergeant, it is, and I will not pretend otherwise. 6 weeks ago, the Vrix attacked our colony at Kepler's Reach. 80,000 of our people were killed. This is our response, but I want you to understand something clearly. This plan was not made 6 weeks ago. It was made 40 years ago, long before Kepler's Reach existed. We built this response as a last option in case the Vrix ever chose to strike us directly. We hoped we would never use it. When they attacked our colony, we authorized its use. But the weapon was already prepared, already waiting. We have been patient for a long time. Whitmore nodded slowly. He did not ask any more questions. None of them did. I returned to my console. The timer on my wrist now read 43 minutes. The bridge fell back into its focused quiet. I watched the map on the main screen. I watched the red dots. I thought about the trillions of minds inside those dots, all going about their ordinary business. Eating, speaking, planning, never imagining what was about to happen to them. Mara leaned close to me. "Sir, can I ask you something?" "Yes." "Do you feel guilty?" I was quiet for a long time before I answered. "Yes, I feel guilty. Not for what we are doing exactly. I feel guilty that it was necessary. The Vricks were not born hateful. Somewhere deep in their history they became what they are. They could have chosen differently. They never did. But they had that choice, and somewhere along the way they lost it. That is the sad part. Not that we are ending them. That they chose this ending for themselves long before we ever arrived." She nodded. She did not speak again. 20 minutes passed. The bridge crew worked quietly. Captain Brandt walked among them, checking systems, asking soft questions. I watched the main screen. At the 30-minute mark, something small happened. A communications officer named Corporal Edward Lowell lifted his head suddenly. He tapped at his console, frowning. "Captain," he said, "I am picking up an unusual pattern in Vricks communications. Not silence, noise, like confusion." "Show me." He projected the signal pattern onto the main screen. A long, jagged line appeared, jumping up and down in sharp, random movements. The pattern was nothing like the smooth, clean communication signals the Vricks normally used. "It is not damage to their system," Lowell said. "The signals are being sent, but the content is incoherent. It is like they are all talking at once but not listening to each other." "The early stages," I said. "The hive mind is beginning to break. Individual Vricks can still speak, but they are no longer able to share thoughts instantly. They are trying. They do not understand why it is not working." The bridge was silent. Everyone was watching the screen. Another 10 minutes passed. The signal pattern grew worse, more chaotic, more broken. Then the first red dot on the map went gray. It was a small Vricks outpost on a remote world. It had gone completely silent. No transmissions, no signals of any kind. A minute later, 2 more dots went gray. Then 5. Then 20. The bridge crew watched, transfixed. The map was changing in front of us. Red dots were turning gray in waves. The pattern was not random. It moved in ripples, spreading outward from the Vricks' homeworld across the galaxy, as the collapse of the hive mind swept through every connected member of the species. I checked the timer on my wrist, 3 minutes remaining. "Commander," Mara whispered, "it is really happening." "Yes." "What does it look like to them, at the end?" I thought about Dr. Acker's old papers. I thought about all the simulations we had run. I thought about what she had told me many years ago when I had asked her the same question. "For each individual Vricks," I said quietly, "it will feel like the moment you wake from a dream. For most of their lives, they have been part of a great ocean of minds. They have never been alone, never been truly themselves. Their thoughts have always been shared, echoed, reinforced. Now, in a single moment, the ocean disappears. They find themselves standing in silence. They try to reach out to their neighbors. Nothing comes back. They try to remember their purpose. They find only fragments. They try to recall who they are. They do not know." "Do they suffer?" "No, that was important to Dr. Acker. The weapon does not cause pain. It does not cause fear. It simply removes the thing that made them a dominion. What is left is a creature that is alive, that can breathe, that can see, but does not know what to do next. Most of them will sit down. Most of them will become quiet. Some will wander. A few, we believe, may eventually rebuild a simpler way of living, without the hive, without the memory of what they were. And their fleets, their weapons. A Vricks fleet is only deadly because it is coordinated by the hive mind. Without that coordination, the ships will simply drift. The individual pilots will not know where to go or what to do. They will shut down their systems and wait. They have no tradition of individual action. They cannot function alone. The timer reached 0. On the main screen, the red dots were vanishing faster now. A great wave of gray rolled across the map of the galactic rim. One by one, every Vrix stronghold, every fleet, every outpost fell silent. Worlds that had been full of activity a minute ago were now empty of signals. Fleets that had been moving in careful formation were now drifting. The bridge was completely silent. Even Captain Brand had stopped walking. Corporal Lowell spoke, his voice low. "Captain, I am detecting one transmission, a single voice from the Vrix homeworld." "Put it on speakers." A hissing sound filled the bridge. Then through the static, a voice emerged. It spoke in the Vrix language. The translation appeared on our screens. The voice was small, confused, tired. "Where is everyone?" it said. A pause. "Where is everyone? Why does no one answer?" Another pause, longer this time. "I am alone, I do not understand. Why am I alone?" The voice broke off. The transmission ended. Silence returned to the bridge. I looked at the map. Almost every red dot was gray now. The Vrix Dominion, which had ruled its corner of the galaxy for over 1,000 years, which had attacked and destroyed 17 worlds, which had killed billions of innocent beings, was gone. Not in fire, not in ruin, just in silence. Captain Brand let out a long breath. She turned to her crew. "Record everything," she said. "Every signal, every change, every last detail. This moment will be studied by our historians for centuries. I want perfect records." "Yes, Captain," the crew answered. She turned to me. Her face was calm, but I could see the weight of what we had just witnessed behind her eyes. "Commander," she said, "what now?" "Now," I said, "we tell the conquered." I pulled out my communicator. I opened a secure channel to the Obsidian Spire, to High Arbiter Thassan himself. I did not have to wait long. The channel connected within seconds. Thassan's face appeared on the small screen. He looked exhausted. He looked old. He looked like a man who had been arguing with 12 counselors for the past 6 hours, trying to understand what I had told him. "Commander Vance," he said, "do you have any further explanation for your behavior this morning?" "Yes, High Arbiter, I do. Please convene the full council. Now, I will appear before you within the hour. I believe you will want to hear what I have to say." He looked at me for a long moment. Something in my face told him that this was not a normal request. "The council will be ready," he said. The screen went dark. I turned to Mara. She was staring at the map, where the last red dot was just now fading to gray. "Are you ready?" I asked her. She turned to me. She took a deep breath. "Yes, sir." "Good. Because what we do in the next hour will shape how every species in this galaxy sees humanity for the next 1,000 years. We have to get it right." "What do you plan to say?" I thought about that as we walked off the bridge. I thought about Juno Hale. I thought about Dr. Akafer. I thought about the 80,000 people of Kepler's Reach. I thought about a galaxy of 12 species, all older and wiser than ours, all now about to learn that the young crude apes had been planning something very quiet for 40 years. "I plan," I said, "to tell them the truth, all of it, and I plan to let them decide what that makes us." The second time I walked into the great chamber of the Obsidian Spire, the silence was different. The first time, when I had entered that morning, the silence had been the silence of power. 12 ancient species looking down at a young human who had been called to answer for his people's pain. There had been anger in that silence. There had been expectation. There had been the certainty that this meeting would follow a pattern they had seen 1,000 times before. Now, 7 hours later, the silence was something else. It was the silence of a chamber that had just learned what humanity truly was. Every counselor in that room had spent the last hour watching the Vrix Dominion vanish from their maps. Every communication network in the galaxy had lit up with the same question. Every diplomatic channel had been flooded with reports of drifting Vrix fleets, silent Vrix worlds, and one strange final transmission from Xantheth asking why no one answered. The counselors watched me walk in. None of them spoke. I could feel their eyes on me with every step. Mara walked behind me. She held herself with perfect dignity, her chin up, her hands at her sides. I was proud of her. I reached the center of the chamber. I looked up at the High Arbiter. Thassan did not stand. He did not shout. He did not pound his hand against the stone of his dais. He simply looked at me, and I saw in his pale face something I had never seen there before. It was fear. Not hatred, not rage, just quiet, deep, careful fear. "Commander Vance," he said, his voice was soft. "I have sat in this chamber for 230 years. I have witnessed the rise and fall of empires. I have heard confessions from killers and speeches from heroes. I have seen things that would break a younger mind. But I have never in all those years seen what I saw on my map this afternoon. Will you please explain it to me?" I nodded. "I will, High Arbiter. Tell me what you want to know." "Everything." I took a breath, and then I told them all of it. I told them about the first contact 40 years ago, and how the Conquered had looked at us and called us crude. I told them about Dr. Renata Akaffer and her strange paper that had been hidden in secret files for nearly 4 decades. I told them about the language weapon, the way it had been designed, the way it had been tested on non-living fungal samples, the way it had been refined 1,000 times over the course of 39 years. I told them about the Vrix hive mind and the single central belief that held it together. I told them how we had waited. For 40 years we had waited. We had not used the weapon. We had hoped we would never need to. Then I told them about Kepler's Reach. 80,000 people, a peaceful colony, children playing in the gardens, families sleeping in their beds, gone in a single night because the Vrix had decided humanity was getting too influential, too connected, too strong. They had struck us to send a message. The message had been clear: stand down, submit, or we will do this again. We did not stand down. We did not submit. We activated the plan we had built decades before. I told them about Juno Hale. I told them everything: her illness, her choice, her journey to Xantheth, her 7 days inside the hive spire, her last words, the letter I still carried in my jacket pocket which I would deliver to her mother when I returned home. The chamber was completely silent while I spoke. No counselor interrupted. No one objected. They listened. They watched me. Some of them took notes. Some of them simply stared. When I finished, I waited. It was High Counselor Keva, the tall, blue-skinned female who spoke first. Her voice was careful, controlled. "Commander, let me make certain I understand. 40 years ago, your government developed a weapon capable of ending an entire civilization. You tested it. You refined it. You kept it ready. You maintained the knowledge in a group of only 7 people, and you waited for 4 decades without ever using it, without ever threatening to use it, without ever telling us of its existence." "Yes." "Why?" "Because we did not want to use it. We built it because the Vrix were a threat, and we believed even then that they might one day strike us. We hoped we were wrong. We prepared in case we were right. We have not spoken of it because weapons, once spoken of, invite arguments and demands. We did not want arguments. We wanted the weapon to stay in its box. And now? And now it has been used, once. It will never be used again. The materials, the research, the design, all of it will be destroyed by order of my government within the month. The 7 of us who knew will take the details with us to our graves. No record will remain." A counselor I did not recognize spoke next. A short, thick-bodied creature with deep purple skin, wrapped in black robes. His name was High Counselor Martin, from a species called the Olta. "Commander, that may be your plan, but surely you understand that we cannot simply trust it. You have shown that your people are capable of hiding a weapon of this scale for 40 years. How do we know you will not build another? How do we know this was the only one? How do we know you do not have 93 more, waiting for 93 more species to misbehave?" I did not answer right away. I looked at him. I looked at all of them. I saw the fear in their faces. I understood that fear. I had expected it. "High Counselor Martin," I said carefully, I am going to tell you something that I was not instructed to share. I am going to tell you because I believe honesty, at this moment, serves all of us better than silence." The chamber waited. "Yes," I said. "We have other plans, not weapons like the one we used on the Vrix. The language weapon was a unique design built for a unique species. It would not work on any of you. The Vrix hive mind was a vulnerability that no other species possesses, but we have over the last 40 years studied every species in the Conquered. We have studied your biology, we have studied your cultures, we have studied your weaknesses, and we have developed contingencies. Quiet, careful plans. In case, one day, one of you chose to do to us what the Vrix did." The silence that followed was deep, deeper than any silence I had ever heard in that chamber. Every counselor went very still. "You threaten us, Commander," said a voice from the far end of the chamber. It was not angry, it was simply careful. "No, High Counselor, I do not. I want to be very clear. I am telling you this so you understand what humanity is. We are not the Vrix. We do not strike first. We do not destroy peaceful worlds. We do not attack species that have done nothing to us. But if someone comes into our home and harms our people as the Vrix did, we do not respond with anger. We respond with patience, with planning, with the work of decades. And we do so in a way that ends the threat completely, so that we never have to do it again." "How many contingencies?" Thassin asked quietly. 93. One for every non-human species in the Conquered. "Yes." "And you believe this will reassure us?" "No, High Arbiter, I do not. I believe it will frighten you. I am sorry for that. I wish it were not necessary, but you asked for honesty. You deserve it." Thassin closed his eyes for a long moment. When he opened them, he looked very tired. "Commander Vance, do you understand what you have just done? Do you understand that you have changed in a single afternoon the entire balance of this galaxy? For 10,000 years, the Conquered has been a place where older species led and younger species followed. Today, you have reversed that order. We now know that the youngest species at this table is also the most dangerous, not because you are warlike, because you are patient. Because you are willing to wait longer than any of us, and to prepare more carefully than any of us, and to do terrible things quietly rather than loudly. I understand, High Arbiter. And you believe this is wise, to tell us these things." I looked at him. I thought about my answer carefully. "High Arbiter, I believe that secrets between allies become knives between enemies. For 40 years we kept a secret. That secret served us, but now the secret is out. Now the weapon is used. If we pretend it was not planned, if we claim it was made in a rush after Kepler's reach, you will not believe us and you will always wonder what else we hide. I would rather you know the truth. I would rather you know that we planned it for 40 years, that we did not want to use it, that we used it only when left with no choice, and that we will not build another. That is the truth. You can trust it or not trust it. That is your decision." Thassin was quiet for a long time. "And if we decide," he said finally, "that humanity is too dangerous to remain in the Conquered, that we should isolate you, that we should close our borders to your ships, your trade, your people, then we will accept that decision. We will not fight you over it. We will go home, and we will live quietly, and we will trade with whoever still wants to trade with us. We do not need the Conquered to survive. We have been surviving on our own planet for 100,000 years before we ever met you. We will continue to survive with or without your approval. And if we decide that you should be removed from the galaxy entirely." I did not look away. I did not blink. "High Arbiter, I will give you the same answer the Vrix would have given if they had been asked the same question a year ago. You are welcome to try." The chamber did not breathe. 12 counselors, older and wiser than me, stared down at one human standing in the center of their marble floor. None of them moved. Then slowly, Keva began to laugh. It was a soft laugh at first, almost a chuckle. Then it grew. A few of the other counselors joined her, not laughing at me, laughing at the situation, laughing at the impossibility of the afternoon. Finally, she spoke through the laughter. "Forgive me, Commander, forgive me. I do not mean disrespect. I am laughing because, for the first time in my very long life, I have no idea what to do next. My advisors will have no answer. My government will have no answer. None of us will have an answer. We will stare at each other across our tables and we will argue, and in the end we will do what the conquered has always done, which is to muddle through and hope for the best. She looked down at me. Her eyes were bright. You will go home now, Commander Vance. You will tell your people what happened here, and we, the conquered, will spend the next many years deciding what we think of you. My prediction, for whatever it is worth, is this. We will be afraid of you. We will be cautious around you. Some of us will try to make alliances with you because they believe friendship with the dangerous is safer than neutrality. Others will try to avoid you entirely. A few, perhaps, will try to test you. They will fail. Most will simply live alongside you, watching carefully as one watches a sleeping predator in the next field. And over many years, perhaps many generations, we will come to accept that the galaxy has changed, that it will not go back to what it was, that humanity, the crude apes, are now something none of us expected. Patient, thoughtful, terrible when provoked, gentle when not. She paused. Is that acceptable to you, Commander? Yes, High Counselor, it is. We do not ask to be loved. We only ask to be left alone and to be trusted when we extend our hand in friendship. The rest is for each of you to decide. Thassin rose slowly from his throne. Then this session is ended. Commander Vance, you are dismissed, with the thanks of the conquered for your honesty and with our sorrow for the loss of the Vrix. They were terrible. They were also, at the end, alive. The galaxy is quieter without them. Whether that quiet is good or bad, I leave to history to decide. I bowed my head. I turned to leave. As I walked toward the door, one of the silent counselors, an old creature I had never heard speak before, raised one thin hand. Commander. I stopped. The human woman, the one who carried the weapon, what was her name again? Juno Hale, High Counselor. Juno Hale. The old counselor nodded slowly. I would like her name to be inscribed on the wall of reckoning. It is the highest honor this council can give. It is normally reserved for conquered citizens. I believe we can make an exception. Something caught in my throat. Thank you, High Counselor. I think she would be honored. No, Commander. It is we who are honored. A single mortal, knowing she would die, walked into the darkest place in our galaxy, and she ended a threat that we, for all our fleets and all our centuries, could not face. She was braver than any of us. Let her name be written where it will never be forgotten. I could not speak for a long moment. Thank you, I said finally. Thank you all. I walked out of the chamber for the last time. In the corridor, Mara was waiting. She had listened through the communicator I carried. Her eyes were wet again, but she was smiling. We walked down the long hall together. Our footsteps echoed softly. Outside, a shuttle was waiting to take us home. 6 months later, I stood in a small town called Durham in the north of England. The air was cool. The sky was gray. The streets were wet from an afternoon rain. I found the small bakery on a corner. I stood across the street from it for a long time before I went in. The woman behind the counter was small, with short brown hair going to gray and clear, serious eyes. She looked up when I entered. She did not know me, but something in her face told me she recognized the kind of news I was carrying. Mrs. Hale, I said softly, my name is Elias Vance. I knew your daughter. She set down the bread she was holding. Her hands trembled just slightly. Come into the back, she said. I will put some tea on. I followed her into the small kitchen. I took out the letter Juno had given me 8 months before, still sealed in its plain white envelope. I placed it on the wooden table. I sat down across from her. She did not open the letter immediately. She poured 2 cups of tea. She slid one toward me. Then she picked up the letter and she opened it slowly and she began to read. She read for a long time. She did not cry. She smiled once softly, and another time she closed her eyes and simply breathed. When she was finished, she folded the letter carefully and placed it back on the table. Thank you, she said, for bringing this, for coming yourself. She would have wanted that. She was very brave, Mrs. Hale, braver than anyone I have ever met. Yes, the older woman said quietly. She was her father's daughter. He was the same way, quiet, stubborn, always doing difficult things without complaining about them. We sat in silence for a while. The rain began again outside. Somewhere, a small bell rang as another customer entered the bakery. "Commander," she said at last, "tell me one thing if you can." "Anything." The thing she did, the mission, did it matter? I thought about the chamber of the obsidian spire. I thought about the gray dots on the map. I thought about a galaxy that would live now, without fear of the Vrix. I thought about the stone that had already been carved on Earth, with Juno's name at the top and 80,000 names below it. I thought about the Wall of Reckoning, where her name was now inscribed forever, alongside the greatest heroes of 12 alien species. "Yes, Mrs. Hale," I said, "it mattered. It will matter for 1,000 years, and every person in that 1,000 years will owe a small part of their peace to her." She nodded once. She picked up her tea. She took a long, slow sip. "Good," she said softly. "That is good. That is what I wanted to know." I left the bakery an hour later. The rain had stopped. The sun was beginning to break through the clouds. Somewhere above me, far above the thin blue sky of Earth, the galaxy was settling into its new shape. 12 species and one. Patience on every side. Fear, for now in balance with respect. Somewhere far across the stars, an old high arbiter named Thassan was probably still sitting in his chamber, still trying to understand what had happened in a single afternoon. He would understand it, eventually. They all would. And somewhere in a vault deep beneath the earth, 93 quiet plans were being reviewed one last time, then carefully destroyed. Because the age of secret weapons was over. Humanity had made its point. It would not need to make it again. I walked down the wet street. I breathed in the cool English air. I thought about Juno Hale's mother, alone in her kitchen with a letter, reading it for the second time, and the third, and the fourth. I thought about the clear, serious eyes she had passed on to her daughter. I thought about what it meant to be human. And I walked home,